Hey y'all, C.W. Harper here. I cannot believe it's another month, but it is. It is now my birthday month, so wish me a happy birthday. And I'm going to be reading from another author this month. It is Ben Rose. I've read several of Ben's books. I think this one I just finished is the fourth one of his books that I've read. Ben Rose is a middle aged, best selling author of young adult novels who resides on the Florida Gulf with his beautiful better half and their cat. When he is not writing or researching, Ben works to improve life for those less fortunate. Having traveled a great deal in his younger years, Ben weaves together stories he has heard and lives he has touched into novels that play jump rope with the fine line between fiction and facts. This book is told from the viewpoint of all of the characters. They just kind of take turns. And so you get a good look into each of their mindsets and where they're coming from and why they do what they do. And the first chapter that I'm going to read is called Babs. The sky was gray, wads of cotton candy, growing ever darker with each passing minute. Fat flakes of snow began to fall, and the ground was cold enough, the wind bitter enough, that accumulation was inevitable. If Lance and Penny didn't return soon, Val and I would freeze to death, or starve to death. We already had coughs that made us sound like barking seals, and my body randomly tried to vomit up contents that it didn't contain. Despite the cold, Val's face was burning up. That would ease through the night. It always did. I wanted to take her to the emergency room at Mount Sinai West, but doing so would make us vulnerable and would endanger our entire family. Val's phone was at 3% battery, and mine was dead. There was no outlet to use for recharging. Phones were one luxury our street dad Lothario insisted on. It was a matter of safety. I could still call 911 if Val died first or vice versa. There'd be the issue of getting the body down from the roof of this building or explaining to the authorities why we were up there. Neither of us was any too strong, but that's why we were always armed, another matter of safety. Maybe Penny would bring Allie or Sunshine as well. I liked them, and both were better than average at scoring free cups of coffee from one of the bodegas by looking plaintive. I needed coffee or some hot beverage. Cocoa would do, tea was okay, but not really my jam. Those four, Penny, Lance, Allie, and Sonny, were with Lothario and Janine, checking out the old man's home and the old man to make sure things were safe. Lothario had said the man called himself Leo, short for Leonid. Val and I hadn't wanted to go until we knew the score, and now was regretting that decision, sort of. As a rule, and for safety, Val and I went where Lothario and our family went. On the other hand, following others had led us into situations that appeared to be salvation at first and instead wound up being hell, especially for two young females who were a couple. There were perverts across the world who paid plenty to watch young lesbians and bisexuals perform for a camera. How could we know that this Leo guy wasn't luring us in and then planning to sell us? Maybe he was connected to the man from whom we were escaping. Even if everything appeared safe to the others, I had to remain on my guard. Val depended on me as much as we both depended on Lothario. I also regretted not kiting a hoodie from one of the outdoor racks in Times Square. A few days before, Janine had grabbed a dark blue XXXL emblazoned with I Love New York. The love is being replaced with a heart. It hung on her like a tent, but I bet she was warmer than I was. Now, the dark blue high-top skater shoes with broken laces almost sealed in the cold instead of warming my feet. My jeans and the thin military jacket over a t-shirt I'd found that read Itty Bitty Titty Committee did little to warm my thin frame. Another 5 minutes and I'd be able to key a car with my tits. I'd claimed the shoes in a fight with a couple of girls from another family. The jeans and jacket were from a church giveaway. The t-shirt had been left on a park bench. That was how the family scored most of our clothing. I sat back as far as I could in the ramshackle lean-to on the roof of the apartment building overlooking the skyline. Val huddled closer to me, shivering spasmodically and chattering her teeth involuntarily. Her combat boots, a pair of dark blue corduroy overalls from the church I mentioned, and a pink long-sleeved t-shirt that she'd removed from an outdoor rack were no defense against the night air. We had one quilt between us, an old patchwork dirty cover that we'd salvaged from a dumpster and washed in a laundromat with money we'd spanged. Drying it took more money than we had, but I convinced the manager of the desk that the dryer had shorted us. He gave us 45 minutes of free drying, and that was enough. Spanging, asking passerby for spare change, as also called panhandling, was how we usually made money. Everything any of us made went into a single purse, and Lothario and Penny decided what we could afford for food, shelter, clothes, or other basic needs. Tonight there would be no chance of earning any money. The weather was too cold. People would be staying indoors with their families, eating roasted chestnuts and singing by the piano. Probably not that, but they might be eating pizza and watching TV, or they might be baking cookies and listening to their kids tell them about their day at school. Christmas was around the corner. I had no idea what normal families did. I hadn't had a traditional family in 2 years. I had never had a normal family. There were 8 of us in our found family. A found family was a group of people not related by blood, at least not at first. Our family all bore a small scar on our right wrist where we had made an incision and mingled our blood with each other. Dr. Blutterbeed, whom I saw once at a free clinic, read me the riot act about the dangers involved: VD, hepatitis, AIDS, and so on. None of us had any of that, and I never considered the possibility of catching the disease by becoming blood relatives. The free clinic was for homeless people. Didn't ask too many questions that would endanger our situation. Emergency rooms and hospitals were a different story. All it took was one wrong word, one misunderstanding between a doctor and patient, and police could be called. That would lead to all kinds of hassles that our family didn't need. Families like ours were established to provide ongoing mutual support. There were dozens or more all across the city, hundreds or even 1,000, I imagined, across the entire country. Some were huge, some like ours kept it small and close. One family might help out another or join ranks for a minute in order to mutually benefit both families. Like with this bakery truck that kept parking in front of this one restaurant, and the driver would leave for 15 minutes to go use the restroom or something. The guy driving the truck wasn't the brightest bulb, and he always unlatched the rear door, checked that nothing had fallen or shifted too much. He closed the door, but he never locked it. Gunner, the street dad of a family called the 420 crew, or FTK, noticed the pattern of the bakery truck driver. Gunner, his street wife, and his street kids were friendly enough with our family. We hung out in different areas, but with proper parley, we could cross the other's ground, and there wouldn't be a fight. The roof where Val and I were squatting was in FTK territory. I had asked one of Gunner's boys to let him know that we were staying for the night. Word came back that we were welcome to do so. About that bakery truck, Gunner sent word that he wanted to speak with Lothario. They discussed the situation at the restaurant, and on a chosen day, all the kids tripled up and watched the streets for 3 blocks around in case the cops came by, which they did come around frequently enough. Gunner opened the back of the truck, and Lothario hauled away 10 fruit pies and 4 cakes using an old pushcart. Later, the families divvied the loot evenly. Gunner's street wife, Micah, had managed to kite 2 bottles of cognac from a store, so each family got one to split. That had been 3 days ago, and it was the last full meal I or Val had eaten. We had a quarter loaf of sliced white bread and some squirt bottle grape jelly, but that would be gone in an hour if we got desperate. I was getting desperate. Like everyone else in the world, I had what they call a family of origin. That's the blood to which one was born. My family of origin had a mother, 3 sisters, a brother, but no father. He left when I was born, just as my siblings' fathers had left when they were born. Mom kicked them out. It was easier to get assistance from the government if she were single with children. I never missed my father because I never knew him, but I did have a picture that my mother had given me. Like me, my father had a thick head of wavy black hair. His skin looked like he had a perpetual tan. So did mine. He was a full-blood Hawaiian, and my mother was Irish. She was the one who named me Cassandra Babette O'Toole. Folks called me Cassie, but my street family changed it to Babs. I liked the name Babs. There was a cartoon with a teenage rabbit named Babs. She mixed yellow and purple in her clothing choices, and those were my two favorite colors. She was 14, and I was almost 15 when I joined the family last year. Also, she was intelligent, and I was no slouch academically before being kicked out of my home. I had maintained high grades in school simply by reading the books a teacher gave me. My attendance was spotty, but that was more about my mother than it was a lack of desire to attend school. As Val snuggled in closer, her 15-year-old body seeking warmth from mine, I thought about my mother. I wasn't certain where she was or where my siblings were. They could have moved. I hadn't felt brave enough to return to our building in Patterson, New Jersey, and check. Despite her many loving qualities, my mother had turned into a rabid homophobe. That's not entirely true. She spoke like a homophobe. I don't think that she actually cared one way or the other, not deep down. When she learned that I was bisexual, she told me that I needed to change. Yeah, right. She said that since I liked boys, I could just find one and then no one would ever know. We had a big blow up about that, and she told me that she wouldn't have a deviant in her home. After all, the church to which she pledged allegiance would stop helping her with her bills if they knew. That was all she cared about, so out I went. Just like I had a picture of my father, I also had a picture of my mother when she was my age. She was a morose-looking girl, lost in deep reflection, lips pressed together in a thin crease. She looked to hold the weight of the world in her hunched shoulders. Her blonde hair hung in ringlets, framing a peach-bloom face and piercing green eyes. I had my father's hair and melanin, but I had my mother's facial features. My mouth often made the same thin line as I thought deeply about my place in the universe. I wasn't as regularly attractive as my father, not as beautiful as my mother. Half-breed is what kids at school called me. A tourist I met who was looking for a date called me Hapahaole, Hapa-Haole. I don't know, probably something Hawaiian. About that, looking for a date, it happened plenty. Sometimes I accepted if there was an immediate need for extra cash. I could take a guy into an alley, or sometimes he'd have a room somewhere. It only took 20 minutes and I'd make $50. I didn't let them put it in me, but everything else was fair game. Most of the guys were just wanted oral anyway. I hated myself for doing that, but there was no way around it when money was tight. Some men and women made online videos. We all had been involved with making those, except Allie and Penny. Making the videos took much longer than 20 minutes, and I was never certain that people I knew wouldn't come across them. I thought about that and felt sick each time. I hoped that this old man Leo wasn't part of that business or any other sordid affairs. My thoughts drifted back to the cold air surrounding me and Val. I patted the crowbar in my backpack, the cat's eye brass knuckles in my pocket, and the steak knife and switchblade in my other pocket as I dozed off. My stomach was scrunching into a tight ball. My spit tasted sour and acidic. I had a headache, and as cold as it was, my face began to feel like it was burning. Something had to give. Had to, or I was going to die. And quite frankly, I wasn't altogether certain that my death would be that much of a loss. Okay, that is how Ben writes. He opened my eyes to a part of society that I had no knowledge of at all. And it was just mind-boggling to me. But The few things that were mentioned in chapter 1, the references to sex and bisexuality, homophobe, all of that, it doesn't get any spicier than that throughout the whole book. And he writes towards a young adult audience. And I agree with him. I mean, kids need to learn how to treat people that are not like them with respect and dignity, even if their parents don't think they deserve it. So that was Ben Rose from his book, Found Family. It is available on Amazon. It's also available on Ingram Spark and several other retailers that buy from Ingram Spark. It's a really good read. And his other books, I would encourage kids to read them. And I'm just going to read the back now, real quick. Leonid Ivanovich Zaslavsky is a middle-aged man reconciled to spending his remaining years feeding pigeons in the park and pondering the many ways that life has let him down. One day, a found family of homeless teenagers ask him for help escaping the sort of horror that most people try to pretend doesn't exist. Suddenly, Leo has a renewed purpose, and the teens are on their way to learning what love and family really means. And that one line there, escaping the sort of horror that most people try to pretend doesn't exist, I had no idea that it did exist. And this opened my eyes. So, for a really good read, I know it's been long today. I'm so sorry. Not really. But for a really good read Ben Rose, Found Family. And I will see y'all next month.